said to myself.
I am the catalyst. I control the Reapers. They are my solution.
Think we'd rather keep our own form.
You still think I did this? To myself?
Not intentionally. Something clearly went wrong. Alright, what happened? To who? To who? Sorry, my face is tired from dealing with everything.
It is not easy for anyone who works at BioWare. The development studio has created some of the most iconic names in gaming history, with some of the most dedicated fans any studio could ask for. In subsequent years, it has also created some of the most crushing high-profile disappointments that can ever be delivered to such a dedicated fanbase, whether in moments or an entire game. For better and worse, BioWare always has a lot of eyes on them despite a run of mediocrity for almost a decade. With yet another game with development struggles and a staff that no longer contains leadership from the days of old, what was formerly called Dreadwolf is now Dragon Age, the Veilguard. Against all the troubling headlines, the game did release. Let's see how it does. In combat, it uses the standard third-person action-adventure template, light heavy attack, dodge, parry, and such. As it does the basic norm for the genre, there isn't anything gimmicky or innovative. Fighting enemies functions well enough, if very unremarkable. As the game runs for many hours, it becomes very noticeable that the variety of enemies is limited. For the boss fights, they are decent as well, but do feature the annoyances of full health, shield recovery, or a surprise appearance as an annoying way to psych people into thinking that the end is near. Control of companions has been reduced to directing which enemy to attack and when to use special abilities. Some companion abilities can combo with others. They seem to do their job well enough, though their basic attack damage is considerably lower than Rook's, and they never seem to be able to be knocked unconscious. The action-adventure RPG Bob template continues with the equipment rarity types, skill trees, and enchantments. Rook's skill web is quite large, but only have enough points to fill out maybe a third of it. This means having to focus in the direction of a specialization of your choosing. It functions as expected, also without gimmicks. Companions get individual short branches for each of the 5 abilities they can perform. They can only have 3 equipped at a time though, so there are some decisions to be made. Equipment upgrades and enchants are the same as other games. Exploration of the world is passable enough. Instead of the giant open zones of Dragon Age Inquisition, it adopts the hallways and rooms traversal floor plan that one may find in JRPGs like Tales and Metaphor. It is the normal adventure game climbing, walking, collecting, and defeating enemy mob packs. There are a limited variety of puzzles, though calling them puzzles is generous as they have the same level of engagement as moving an office cart blocking an elevator back to its designated area. Fast travel is plentiful once zones and waypoints are unlocked, and the distinct variety of the sharp environments creates at least some perception of a larger world, even if it feels more like traveling through a state instead of a country. However, look just a little closer at the environments and shortfalls are revealed. Most locales do not have enough visually distinctive features to establish a feel or culture of an area. For example, the Erlathan Forest supposedly has a lot of ancient elven history, but there is very little for elven features. It has many generic trees, rocks, ruins, and normal side quest objectives. Minrathous is supposedly the capital city of the feared Tevinter Imperium, but the accessible Docktown district is more of a downtrodden Kirkwall. There are a few interesting locales to look at, and an occasional fantastic view, but there are not enough of them to make up for most of the locations having the uniqueness of post-consumer recycled content. Not helping the situation is Veilguard adopting a character art style that does not align with any past franchise game. It is the ubiquitous, somewhat detailed, yet somewhat toony middle-of-the-road look that numerous games already have. While the style by itself may not be necessarily bad, the apparent chosen sacrifice is almost all remaining visual identity Veilguard could have had with its predecessors. Darkspawn, demons, and all the other enemies are presented in a very mundane, insignificant, and non-threatening way. With what these enemies have been reduced to, Veilguard relies on a massive quantity of mundane evil to create conflict. How is this presented? A lot of it is said to Rook, but not shown. Rook and the team have failed to stop the Dreadwolf Solus from starting the ritual to tear down the Veil, which would have flooded Thedas with demons and chaos. Also, Solus can bring back the nostalgic world that he lost. The team did manage to interrupt the ritual, but interrupting this Elven God's ritual resulted in another 2 Elven Gods being released, Elgar'nan and Gillenane. These 2 self-proclaimed gods bring a new blight, 2 archdemons, armies of fanatics, conquerors, demons, darkspawn, and a lot of pompous talking. This calamity is said to have breached multiple capital cities throughout Thedas, but it doesn't feel like it. Most of what Rook comes across is small packs and skirmishes. The wartime chaos and conflict feels concentrated in one location at a time, like an assault on a fort or wherever a giant dragon appears. Joining Rook is an ensemble of companions who are met, talked to, and helped in that same familiar BioWare formula. Unlike the Mass Effect Suicide mission crew, the Veilguard is an ultimate test of patience. When first meeting most of these companions, they display vapid personalities backed by adolescent depth dialogue that come with a myriad of quips, bravado, and shallow interests. What shape it? Because that is Dwarven slang that was outdated 20 years ago. Whether to establish shock value or retain the attention span of goldfish, the first half of the game tries very hard to make modern day viral trendy personality traits flash regularly, but ultimately end up establishing a set of coworkers I would rather put into a Titan submersible. Not helping the situation is the weak display and weak connections to Dragon Age lore. The world, characters, and narrative do not demonstrate much knowledge or consistency with past themes and events, aside from recalling some events and cameoing a couple characters from Dragon Age Inquisition. A lot of the lore has been shoved into the Codex, and even a good portion of it is pulled from Inquisition. Dragon Age Origins and 2 might as well be forgotten to Veilguard, because the only major character to remain from those games has been sanded down to a family-friendly aid. Anything that was tragic, dark, or fascinating in the past games is now just existing. That blight is okay to stand in and be exposed to. Nobody will end up to the extent of Tamlin and Bethany. The Grey Wardens might as well be Sword and Shield Enthusiasts Guild with a brickhead for leadership and cute baby pets. Past the halfway point, the game presents the need to take care of companion worries and boost the factions to increase the chances of success against Elgernard and Gillenane. It is both the Mass Effect 2 squad loyalty missions and Mass Effect 3 galactical readiness rating to get the best chances for the good ending. With helping companions, each person is a questline. One would complete several of these quests and conversations across a few companions to clear them out, do one story mission, then do several more unlocked quests and conversations. This occurs multiple times. The result is the story gets parked a lot and for extended amounts of time because there is a lot of talking and work to get done. The experience reminded me a lot of Final Fantasy XIII, a game that features a lot of hallway running, simplified leveling up, basic combat, great hair tech, a narrative that gets parked in Chapter 11 for a long side quest grind, and a cast of characters I also would not mind shoving into a Titan sub. The good news for Veilguard is some members become more normal, acceptable, dare I say even likable for one of them. Most upgrade to merely tolerable status. For team members I continue to not find interesting, it felt like being forced on a long school project with classmates you do not work well with. Now, it is going to be impossible to like every character, and in past BioWare games, there have been overly abrasive characters and blank characters. It usually doesn't involve mission chains that take hours to finish. Yes, these companion side quests are not mandatory, but for the best chances of the best ending, it's likely it will need to be done. For getting the faction readiness up, it is doing side quests and donating valuable trash found in chests and on the ground, with the quests being normal objectives of killing things, collecting things, and solving things. The limited variety feels like busy work. When the ending arrives, the first half is more of the same quality of story. The second half is spectacular. All of the narrative and cinematic talent is on full display, which leaves the question, where was this the rest of the game? It is as if all resources and energy during the start of development went into creating the final hour of the game, and then they worked backwards. The further away from the ending, the worse the narrative and companions got. The ending is also at the 40-hour playtime mark if one chooses to get a good number of side quests and side stories completed. For Veilguard, it is a game that is difficult to recommend to anyone who has played a decent amount of any previous Dragon Age game, including Inquisition. It is an unremarkable piece of interactive software that can be easily reskinned or mistaken for another generic amorphous blob game. For those new to BioWare, Dragon Age, or this type of narrative game, it is alright. It is a functional, playable game with a lot to do, sharp environments, and works well enough as a brain-off, low-stress, comfort game. I originally bought Veilguard with the expectation that it would be a nice way for me to get sleepy before bedtime, playing it on my Steam Deck, and it certainly worked. Score 5 out of 5, excellent sleeping aid. Thing is, the development studio here is BioWare. For all of their blunders, staff turnovers, development struggles, and long continual declining fan sentiment, one cannot help but feel moderately curious about new releases from the studio. Because KOTOR, the Mass Effect trilogy, and Dragon Age Origins have established that powerful of a legacy. It has been almost 15 years since Mass Effect 2. There has been a lot of grief since then. Now that Veilguard is released, credit should be given that the game came out passable for all of the troubles during development. At the same time, it is time to look at the final stage of grief: acceptance. This is not to say BioWare should get a pass. It is to accept that BioWare today is not a prestigious or talented development studio. The execution of the old BioWare formula after Inquisition has been lackluster, and several aspects have been far surpassed by other games. For open-world action-adventure RPG blob game, there is Horizon. For an incredible high-quality cinematic narrative, Spider-Man 2. For those who want another Dragon Age Origins, there is Baldur's Gate 3. The Veilguard is Dragon Age's Andromeda, and it is time to move on. However, it seems BioWare is not going to let that happen easily, as they are developing another new game to succeed a beloved trilogy. And perhaps, when the new game releases, the grief will come and go once more.